Hello, students, and a very warm welcome to today's explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this fascinating subject. Today, we're focusing all our attention on demystifying the cerebrum. We'll be proceeding at a comfortable, deliberate pace, so you can thoroughly grasp every single detail. So, please make yourselves comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's begin our journey into the most advanced structure of the human body.
All right, let's dive right in. Ground yourself in reality for a second and just take a look at this actual human cerebrum. It's incredibly complex, yes, but deeply, deeply fascinating. You see, it isn't just a flat textbook diagram. It's the very engine of your thoughts, your memory, your voluntary movements, and your intelligence.
Now, I want you to consider a simple question. Did you know the cerebrum makes up a massive 2/3 of your brain's total weight? Think about that for a second. 2/3. This sheer physical dominance perfectly illustrates just how absolutely critical the cerebrum is to everything we do as human beings.
To ensure we cover this systematically, here's our syllabus for today. First, we'll meet the cerebrum, then map the geography of the brain, explore the 4 main lobes, differentiate gray and white matter, pinpoint key functional areas, and finally, look at some clinical anatomy highlights.
So, let us first begin with Part 1, Meet the Cerebrum. Let's understand its fundamental placement first. It acts almost like a protective helmet, occupying the anterior and middle cranial fossa of your skull. Imagine your skull essentially shielding it. The cerebrum fills up those front and middle sections completely. And importantly, it's divided by a deep groove right down the middle into 2 distinct halves, a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. Now, since we have 2 hemispheres, they definitely need to talk to each other, right? This is achieved by a massive C-shaped bundle of nerve fibers right in the center called the corpus callosum. Let me repeat that slowly for your notes. Corpus callosum. It acts as the essential communication bridge between the left and right halves of the brain. Without it, the 2 sides literally could not share information. Moving smoothly right along to Part 2, Geography of the Brain. You've probably noticed the brain isn't perfectly smooth. It's highly folded. Well, we use 2 specific terms for these folds, gyri and sulci. Think of it kind of like a landscape. The gyri are the hills, those raised folded ridges, and the sulci are the valleys, the depressions or grooves separating those hills. But why is it folded like this? The crucial point to remember is that this folding dramatically increases the surface area of the cerebrum. More surface area means we can fit way more neurons, which significantly boosts our brain's overall processing power. Mapping those definitions visually, you can clearly spot the distinct raised ridges, the gyri, and then the darker, narrow grooves running right between them, the sulci. It's exactly this tightly packed topography that allows our complex central nervous system to perform so exceptionally well. All right, let's step into Part 3, the 4 brain lobes. Let's divide this landscape up a bit further. Each hemisphere of the cerebrum is split into 4 main continents, known as lobes. Try to visualize their specific locations here. At the very front, we've got the frontal lobe. Sitting just behind it at the top is the parietal lobe. Down on the side, near your ears, is the temporal lobe. And right at the back of your head, we find the occipital lobe. Very logically, they're actually named exactly after the cranial bones of the skull that they sit directly beneath. Students, you'll definitely want to lock this summary table right into your memory for exams. Let's systematically go through each lobe's primary overarching function. The frontal lobe is your main command center for voluntary motor activity, speech production, and literally your entire personality. The parietal lobe is responsible for sensory perception, helping you interpret touch and temperature. The temporal lobe, right near your ear, handles hearing, memory, and understanding language. And finally, the occipital lobe at the back is entirely dedicated to vision. Diving deeper now into Part 4, Gray and White Matter. Kindly note the distinct difference here, as it's absolutely foundational. If we take a cross-section, you'll see the cerebrum has an outer layer called gray matter and an inner layer called white matter. The gray matter is essentially the cerebral cortex. It contains all the nerve cell bodies. You can think of it as the central processing units of a computer. The white matter, located much deeper inside, consists of nerve fibers or axons. These are the cables or the wiring that connect different parts of the brain together. So gray is for processing, white is for wiring. This brings us to Part 5, Key Functional Areas. We're zooming in even closer now to specific cities within those lobes we just talked about. Notice how specific functions map perfectly out to exact spots. In the frontal lobe, you'll see the dedicated areas for personality and movement. Just below that, still in the frontal lobe, is the specific center for producing speech. If you move back to the parietal lobe, you find the precise zone for bodily sensations. It's a highly organized, wonderfully complex map of human ability. I want to be very deliberate with this next comparison because the distinction between these two areas is a classic exam question. We have Broca's area and Wernicke's area. Broca's area, located over in the frontal lobe, is the motor speech area. It's responsible for the physical production of speech. Wernicke's area, located in the temporal and parietal region, is the sensory speech area. It's strictly responsible for understanding speech. Simply put, Broca's makes you speak, but Wernicke's helps you comprehend.
In anatomy, we also use a numbering system called Brodmann areas to quickly define these regions. Let's recite these slowly and rhythmically so you can lock them firmly into your understanding. Area 4 is the primary motor cortex. Again, Area 4 is your primary motor cortex. Areas 3, 1, and 2 make up the primary sensory cortex. Areas 41 and 42 are the primary auditory area, and Area 17 is the primary visual area. Definitely write these down, they are essential to know. Finally, let's wrap up with Part 6, Clinical Anatomy Highlights.
Now you might be asking, why does all this matter in the real world? Well, let's bridge the gap between our textbook anatomy and the reality of the hospital wards. When something goes wrong in the brain, the exact physical location dictates the patient's symptoms. For instance, a lesion or damage to the primary motor area, perhaps from a stroke, leads to hemiplegia, which is paralysis on the opposite side of the body. A specific lesion in Broca's area leads to expressive aphasia. This is where a patient completely understands what you're saying, but simply cannot physically produce the words to reply. And damage to the prefrontal cortex, that can fundamentally alter a patient's entire personality and social behavior.
Which brings us to a really profound conclusion. If a tiny, localized lesion in one specific gyrus can completely strip away a person's speech or entirely alter their personality, how much of who you are is simply mapped out in the physical topography of your cerebrum? It's a staggering thing to consider, isn't it? I want to thank you all sincerely for your highly focused attention today. Keep marveling at the profound nature of neuroanatomy, keep studying hard, and I will see you in our very next explainer.